Hey everybody, I just wanted to say hey, thanks for subscribing to my channel. I wanted to make a video for those of you who have emailed me and asked me questions about how I make my photographs or how I learn to make photographs. I have taken quite a few classes in how to make photographs, but I have to tell you that, cameras are all really basically the same. They really are horrible to work with. I mean, let's face it, they have a very limited range of between brights and darks, and how they record the brightness of a photograph and how they record the dark parts of the photograph and the shadows. A lot of times you can't do both because cameras are just so limited. They really are a very simple, kind of a crummy machine when you think about it. They really aren't that great. They're very difficult to use because we have to fix everything so the camera can take the photograph the way we want it. So my advice to everybody out there who is learning photography is learn your camera. It is a very simple machine. It's not complicated. All of the camera manufacturers want you to think differently, but it's really not difficult. There are only a few things you really need to know when you're in the beginning of your photography journey. There's just a few things that you need to know to make great photographs. And to prove that, I went back to what I used to do to build technique and how to think about making photographs. And I want to give you this exercise that I do that really helped me tremendously. First thing you need to do is you need to get out of any kind of auto mode. And I'm talking about aperture or shutter priorities. Get out of it. Get into your manual mode, including manual focus. That will help you tremendously about thinking about every part of your piece. It's not about all the bells and whistles that all of these manufacturers put on the camera for you to think about, for you to worry about. There are only a few things, really, just a very few things you need to know about your camera and how to make it work. Later on, if you want to do that stuff, that's fine, but you should know how your camera works and how to work it. First of all, we need to understand that it's all about light and light values. Stronger light, stronger tones have a stronger value within your photograph. The strongest, brightest light is what you're exposing to most of the time. But you have to realize that you can turn down the light. You don't have to live with the light that's in front of you. If you're shooting in auto mode, forget about it. If you shoot in an auto mode, the camera company has decided what picture it is that you're going to make. Why would you do that? Please stop that. Don't do that. Get into manual mode so that you can understand better how your camera works. So if you have a very big hole with a very small aperture number like 2.8, and these photographs I'm showing you are all 2.8. And they were all taken, for the most part. There were a few that were not taken in JPEG, because I wanted to show that we can't be afraid of what we're doing. I do shoot in RAW quite a bit, but I practice for many years in JPEG, because you have to know that you're getting it as right as you can get it before you start jumping into RAW and spending hour after hour on your computer. You don't want to be in your computer. You want to be making photographs in your camera. Okay, so let me get back to the 2.8 thing. We know that with 2.8, you're going to get a very shallow depth of field. If you don't know that, you need to go study that and learn it, because this is my jumping off point here. When I practice these nature shots, I want to be able to isolate. This is a exercise in isolating and composition. That's all it is. And in 2.8, you know that all of your shutter speeds are going to be pretty fast. So that's really cool. This is not about long exposures or anything like that. Later on we can learn about that. But with a short shutter speed and a very small aperture, everything is going to be blurry except for a very small area. Now, what I like to do is I get a zoom. I use a 200, an 80 to 200, an old lens, and I zoom it all the way out to 200, and then I get as close as I can. That's called minimal focus distance. Remember that. You get as close as you can and focus. Then everything behind it becomes compressed and mushy and blurry and beautiful and dreamy. That's the way I like it. Now, this is kind of like taking a macro shot. You're getting as close as you can, but that doesn't mean that you're not thinking about composition. You have to be able to look beyond the thing that you want to shoot. It's not just about that thing you want to shoot. Oh, look, there's a flower. I'm going to shoot a flower. Big deal, there's a flower. It doesn't matter. You want to put context around your image. It needs to be surrounded by other things. Put some bees in it. That, you know, oh, I'm going to shoot a bee. That's so cliche. It's not about shooting bees. It's not about shooting flowers. It's about thinking about composition. It's about thinking about every single component that goes into your work. You need to take responsibility for your piece and not take, just take a shot and say, why doesn't my picture look good? It's because you're probably not thinking about all the things that go into it. Do I want to turn down the light? Do I want to turn up the light? How do I do that? Think about that. Obviously, if you want to turn down the light, what do? Well, you speed up the shutter speed, right? So think about these things. I want to show you some photographs. These are photographs before. This is what I saw first. I saw this picture first, and after working with it for a couple of minutes, I made these pieces right here. I saw these bushes, and I'm looking for good light behind it. And when I find that, then I know I can use this exercise where I'm getting as close as I can, and I'm just putting some light behind there, and I'm compressing as much as I can, and I'm doing as much as I can to get these little shots and get this little dream world going on. And they come out really cool. They're beautiful. I love them. Now, these are impressions, so we're not really worried about all the details that everybody cries about. Oh, there's all the detail. Who cares? I don't care. It looks good to me. I like it. That's the reason why I make it. And that's why everybody should make anything when we do photography. Everyone should just work things out in their own journey, so we can make photographs that we want to make. Not just because that guy over there who's a great photographer likes it. Well, I guess if that's what you want to do, that's fine. And he'll tell you exactly how to make photographs like him. Is that what you want to do? Fine, go do it like him. All I'm saying is there's nothing wrong intrinsically with the critique system. But you have to know that somebody who's telling you how to make a photograph is going to probably tell you how to make it the way they would make it. Oh, I would rather see this, or I would rather see that. Well, is that what you want to see? That's the big question. So try this exercise. You go out, if you have a zoom lens, zoom it all the way out and see how close you can get to something and get focus. Now, find some good light and start lining up your shots and making sure that the composition is good, that all the elements in it are good and they work. And then start shooting away and start working at it. You're not going to get it on the first try. Nobody does. Every good photographer that we all see has lots of failures on their computer, or they delete them. We only show our good work. It's not like we know something more than anybody else. We just work at it a lot. And that's what we all need to do to get this journey worked out. This is how you will learn your voice. Line up those shots and keep doing it. And when you start shooting bees, as cliche as that might be, I'll tell you what, being able to focus, get the shot, lining it up quickly, hurry, 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 hurry. That sort of thing transfers into everyday life. If you're on vacation, your family doesn't want to be waiting around for you to line up the shot and hurry up and get it. You'll be able to take those things that you learn from these kinds of exercises to the outside world and take quicker, better shots, because you're thinking more about composition and more about what's going into the photograph, what don't I want into the photograph, how fast do I want my shutter speed. And later on, after you do these 2.8 or very low aperture exercises, then you can start graduating into other things using higher, using flashes and more complex, f/16s, f/22s, and that sort of thing. But start with this. Like I said, I did this for a couple of years. This was one of the best exercises I ever practiced with, and I still do it just because I love it. Because there are secrets out there in the forest that you can take. You find the light, and you think about how you can line up your shots. I'm telling you, do this. You're going to get frustrated, but you know what? You're going to learn. And that's more important than anything, isn't it? And you're going to learn what you like, and you're going to find your voice, and you're going to find who you are in your photography. And that's more important than what anybody can tell you. Anybody who wants to critique you, or anybody who from Nikon to Canon, or anybody who says you should use this priority or that priority. You will learn more in manual than you will learn in any other mode on your camera. I encourage you to do this. Again, thank you for subscribing, and I'll see you later. Oh, wait a minute. One more thing. Most of these shots are straight out of the camera. Some I did process, and I'm going to show you the process when you do this. Please, it shouldn't take more than a minute or two, and I'll show you what I do. What I do is I go in, I open this up, open up a photo, and then all I do is I go over here. This photo is well lit, so I'm not worried about anything except lighting. So I go over to this function, which is enhancing the light, and I bring up the histogram. Now this histogram is not too bad, but it tells you where you're going to blow something out or where you're going to lose everything in shadow. So everything on the right and the left, you need to only slide up to these points where the graph starts to move up. You don't want to move it into that, because then you'll start blowing things out, or you'll start darkening things to black, and you'll lose things in your shadows. So that's what I do. I kind of pump it up on the right, which is the whites, and I pump it up on the left, which is our shadows, and then the brightness is in the center. And I'll just slide down the brightness a little bit, and it really pops out a lot of the details. And then I'm done. I'm finished. Now, if you want to, you can select one of these three little eyedroppers up on the right. One is black on the left. The one on the right is white. The one in the middle is gray. So I always select the gray, and then I start popping around the photograph, because if you select gray, it'll just enhance the photograph a little more than, like what it already is. But if you select something that's not gray, or a little shade off of gray, you may get something that you really like, and that only takes a few seconds more. So if you're not shooting in RAW and you're worried about it, you can just do this. And if you want to change colors, of course, it's not as extensive as RAW, but it still comes out pretty cool. I really like this one. Anyway, I encourage you, experiment, experiment, experiment. And when you need to learn something, if you can go to a class, go to a class. If not, just read about it. It's very simple. It's all about the light, turning it up, turning it down, and doing it as much as possible in your camera and as little as possible in Photoshop, because Photoshop is not photography. It's After Effects processing. Photography is holding your camera or putting it on your tripod, if that's what you want to do. That's photography. Peace to you. Talk to you later.